Hello and welcome back to the PuckLuck.com betting and fantasy team previews show for the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins not only won the President's Trophy with the best record in hockey last season, but also set the NHL record for the best record in NHL history. They were the second team to do it in like 5 years. Both teams, the Tampa Bay Lightning and Boston Bruins, died in the first round of the playoffs in dramatic fashion. Tampa Bay got swept. Boston lost at home in 7. So that's sour taste in a lot of Bruins fans' mouth. And I'm sure they don't need to relive or rehash that very, very sad playoff performance. But as a Sabres fan, I have to just take one last jab at you guys. We haven't seen the playoffs in 12 years. It's all I have. But I do think this Bruins team may be on a bit of a surprise tour this year. Last year, no one predicted them to be as good as they were. This year, again, people are incredibly low. It kind of feels like we need a new, sexy, fun team to make the playoffs. The Bruins kind of feel like the team you take out, and I think that could be a mistake. This is a team we project for 115 points, which is still would have won President's Trophy last season. 113 was the next closest. So a team that we're projecting to have 20 points less would still have 115 and have won the President's Trophy last year. Yeah, it's pretty staggering when you put the numbers out there. I think that 115 is a bit high. 119 ceiling. We're kind of saying like, yeah, probably not going much higher than 115. Could probably be a bit lower, and I think that closer to that floor is in range. But even if they are in range with that floor at 97, it's about what the sports books have at 101.5 as their over under. So we're kind of smashing that over at PuckLuck.com. It's the first real big, like, here you go, great bet that exists so far as any of the sports books for a team are concerned. Yeah, I'm not touching the Stanley Cup odd. I know it's a small, actually, it's not even an edge, is it? No. So once again, the Stanley Cup is bad. Division, still think this is just too tough of a division to really want to mess around with. So I'm bowing out personally, betting the Atlantic. Probably in general, I just think that most of these bets are going to come back pretty poorly, but we'll get to those teams. And the playoffs, yeah, it's an edge, but I think the point total is just a better edge. We have it projected for 81% of the time over. I tend to think it's closer to maybe 65, 70, even maybe that 70 mark. But you take that 70, 75 mark definitely when it comes to these kind of odds. And that's projecting them to have almost 34 points less. So with that, we kind of get to why they might actually be better than you expect. And that's really David Pastrnak, who we're projecting for 109 points. And that's another bet that I'm just in on going into next year. I think he is just a great player that I'm very, very interested in, everything. And he played minutes with Krejci and Bergeron, of course. Everyone that was worth like a salt did. But I don't think that, I think it's a huge loss, and he's going to suffer a little bit. But I still think Pastrnak kind of drives the bus here, and he'll continue to drive the bus with whoever they put out there with him. And he's pretty much just a bit of a unicorn of a player. So I'm high on Pastrnak. I'm putting him in some underdog slips. I'm putting him in some point total bets. And Pavel Zacha, if you can find it, like that 50 total feels low to me if he plays with Pastrnak. I think he'll be a bit higher than that myself, but I get that he hasn't shown it at all. So how does the model say he's going to go and jump much higher than 50, which seems pretty good. So if you look at the lines, though, if you're putting Zacha with Pastrnak at 5-on-5, which I do expect, I think that's why you start looking at Zacha as a draftable asset in many formats. All formats, really. I'll be kind of keeping him on my sleeper list. I'm not sure how unique it's going to be as a sleeper, but I feel like I'm one of the first to call here. He's a good rate shooter. He has an incredibly high prospect pedigree. He's playing with freaking David Pastrnak. So I'm really high on him. I don't think we need to say too much on Marchand and Nebraska. While should drop a little bit, not playing with Bergeron, who was their center primarily last year. I still think they'll be okay. The question is who's going to fill that other, that center spot with them. Tough to know. Is JVR going to fill the other wing spot? It's tough to know. So that is where it gets pretty dicey. The defense, don't need to say much about how good McAvoy, Grzelcyk, Lindholm, and Carlo are. That's two guys that at one point were, in the Norris watch list probably. McAvoy missed some time last year, should be at full health this year. And the goaltending duo of Ullmark and Swayman is really just quite out of this world. Again, don't think I need to say too much about how great that is. We were lucky enough to find someone who would grace us with their really, and I really love this take, and I think it's a really interesting conversation. I asked around a whole bunch. Jay when PuckLuck went out and got a quote from Ian McLaren. Definitely give Ian C. McLaren a follow. I did myself. I'm really excited to see what he has in the betting space. Would love to touch base more out with him. But he talked about a player that stands out to me as Morgan Geeky. He's going to have a prime opportunity to shine as a third line center and possibly in a top six role with Charlie Coyle as as or if I guess Charlie Coyle seems to be better suited for third line duties. Geeky signed with the Bruins to get more playing time. He's put up really great rate stats, which I totally agree with in Seattle in a limited role. If he breaks out, the Bruins would be a much better place for it. It's a big body. He has a great shot. And I think that is a guy you're going to keep an eye on in DFS. You're going to keep an eye on in sort of the community, small slates on underdog when you're drafting. Like, this is a guy that could bump in and take over that first line center role with Marchand and DeBrusk. I'm interested. And anyone that's playing well is probably going to see time with DeBrusk, Pastrnak, and Marchand. Those are very valuable minutes. So I'm interested in seeing Morgan Geeky. I don't think he's going to see much of a power play role, which is the knock and the reason why he's really not season long draftable or best puck draftable. But I do think he's still like a very much a keep an eye on type of player going into the season. If the rate stats are there, if the minutes are there, and he catches a bit of that Bruins magic, who knows what could happen with a guy like Morgan Geeky. The other question mark is who's going to take that left wing spot with Zacha and Pastrnak. If it's JVR, I think you might want to be looking at him on waivers in some of your drafts because this is a guy that has a lot of finishing ability. So I'm excited to see what this Bruins team can do. Some of the best goaltending in the league, bar none. I would say maybe the best defensive unit of the top four in the NHL. And they still have some really good forwards, and yet everyone's kind of taking them out of the playoff race. And while I said I'm a Sabres fan and I'd love nothing more than to see the Sabres take over the Atlantic Division, I don't think the Bruins are quite done yet. So I'm still projecting the Bruins, over that 101 points. And I'm definitely looking at Pastrnak and Zacha for point total overs. And we will get back to you with my favorite, the Buffalo Sabres, where I will give an unbiased model predicted opinion, and not my own, but a little bit of my own next time.